How was your Easter? Mine was fantastic. And not because everything went perfectly, but because of something else I want to talk about today. I want to share a few things I've learned that have been invaluable to me when it comes to holidays or events that can often be kind of stressful. Often we invest so much time and energy into preparing for these big gatherings, and because of our investment, we really hope that things will go well and as planned. In the past, I would often have a lot of anxiety around holidays, family reunions, and other large gatherings. And I've realized there are several reasons for this. Number one, I'm worried about whether or not those who are coming will enjoy the food and activities I've prepared for them. Number two, I compare myself to what I think other families are doing, and I think I will fall short. And the third thing is the day of the event, I want to control whatever's going on to make sure everyone's comfortable and happy, which often really makes it hard for me to enjoy myself. In the past, this is what all the worrying and comparing and trying to control ended up looking like for me. I would often begin to get anxious weeks and sometimes months ahead of time. I spent hours and sometimes days planning all the details. But as soon as I thought I'd come up with a good plan, then I would often second guess myself, sometimes to the point that I'd find myself wanting to call everyone who was invited and ask what they'd had the last week for dinner so I wouldn't serve something that they had just recently eaten. I would come up with a plan for a fun activity and then stress that it would be fun for the younger kids, but not for the older ones. It was like if there was an activity like an Easter egg hunt, I would stress about making everything fair. What if one grandchild ends up with more eggs than the other? At Christmas, I'd worry about whether each person had the same number of Christmas presents. And I wanted to make sure all the presents cost about the same so no one would feel bad. The other way I put an enormous amount of stress on myself was to think about all the other families in the neighborhood, or think about my boys' in-laws and picture them spending lots of money and doing all kinds of expensive activities and going on expensive trips, and feel like I had to somehow try to compete with the neighbors and with in-laws and everybody else that I probably saw on social media. I made myself miserable. Instead of seeing all the great memories we were making, all I could see were the things we weren't doing that everyone else was doing. And when I did decide to do something, I tried so hard to make everything perfect that I ended up feeling angry, exhausted, and full of resentment. I cleaned the house till it was spotless, overspent, used all my energy figuring out every detail, and I spent hours thinking about what I could do to provide the most amazing experience I could and make everyone happy. Before my guests arrived, I worried that someone might show up a little early and that maybe I wouldn't be quite ready. And what would I do if they were bored? Then I'd feel anxious thinking, well, what if a family arrived late and threw off my schedule? I didn't want to start without someone, but I also didn't want the food I had spent hours preparing to be cold by the time the late party arrived. By the time people started arriving, I would just want it all to be over already, and I would be so anxious that I could hardly enjoy myself. When people started conversing, I worried that someone might say something that might upset someone else. What if there was a debate on a difficult topic and someone got offended? What if there weren't enough comfortable chairs to sit in? Or what if at the last minute people couldn't come because of sickness or from some other reason? After all the preparation and hard work, if even one thing went wrong, I could feel pretty disappointed. I'm a very social person. I love getting together with family and friends, and even with those I don't know well. But I began to wonder if it was all worth it. I wondered if something was wrong with me when I didn't want to socialize as much as I had in the past because I would get so stressed out. What I didn't realize was that I was creating all my own anxiety and problems. It sure did feel like all these external things I was worrying about were the problems. But all along, it was really me creating all my own anxiety and stress. When I was taught that my own thoughts were what created my feelings, I didn't believe it at first. I wanted to continue to blame my circumstances for my feelings. But once I realized it was truly what I was thinking that caused me to feel anxious, and it's my thoughts that caused me to feel disappointed, and it's my thoughts that made me feel discouraged, then I realized I had the power and the opportunity to feel something different if I wanted to also. Now that I've been practicing being aware and only keeping thoughts that I know will create a feeling of calm and lessen my worry and frustration, days like yesterday on Easter when everyone was here for our celebration, instead of it being something that I dreaded, it ended up being relaxing and tons of fun. And it was an event that I thought, oh, I can't wait till this happens next year. They all these holidays have become so much more fun for me. I know that I will always have some anxiety, but now I see that as being pretty normal for me, and it's okay. It's so much more manageable, and I'll tell you why. So, number one, instead of worrying about trying to please everyone and thinking there's a perfect menu or a perfect activity, I realize that everyone's going to create their own experience by the thoughts they choose to think about what they're doing and what they're eating. So if I can't control how others are going to think about the food I've prepared or the activities I've planned, then what makes sense to me is to make decisions based on what gets me excited. Sounds delicious and sounds like the most fun to me. This sounds kind of selfish. And of course, I consider any allergies or food preferences my guests have, and I think about their interests. But then I think about what I might want to try or what sounds good to me. Do I feel like doing something simple, or am I in the mood to do something that takes a little more time and preparation? And what activities sound fun to me? Now, at first, this sounded selfish to me, and it kind of felt selfish, but it has made a huge difference, not only for me, but for my husband and even my guests. Because when I'm authentic and I'm not stressed out, but just excited about the event and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone, it doesn't seem to really matter if I decide to order out pizza or spend hours fixing everything from scratch. My guests sense my feeling of calm and they enjoy themselves more too. Number two, the next thing I do is remind myself that to compare is to despair. I've learned there isn't an upside to comparing myself to anyone. This was especially hard to learn when my first sons got married. I used to stress about how much time they spent with their wife's family compared to our family, how many trips they went on with their in-laws compared to what we went on. I wondered if what we spent on birthday and Christmas gifts was much less than other families spent. It's extremely challenging and really takes the joy out of life when the reason that I'm doing something is because I'm trying to compete or keep up with the neighbors or in-laws. As parents, we can spend all this time planning and spend all our whole year's budget on one trip for our children, like Disneyland or Six Flags. And years later, when you ask them what their favorite family vacations were, they will often say, "Remember that time we went camping? Or that time we did a stay vacation and spent time doing fun things close to home? That was my favorite memory." I try to remind myself that often less is more. Often it's not about what you eat or what you do. The greatest memories are those that provide opportunities for closeness and feelings of love instead of feeling rushed and stressed out. It's much more about how you feel when you're together than the activity that was planned. Number 3, the last thing I have to remind myself is to stay in my own lane. It's not my job to control what my guests want to discuss. It's not my job, and actually impossible for me, to make my guests feel happy or any other emotion. They get to decide if they're going to have fun, enjoy the time together, and feel happy, and it's actually none of my business. As long as everyone's being civil, I can just decide to enjoy and love everyone just the way they are, and let everyone manage their own experience and emotions. It's so much more fun and so much less exhausting for me. Yesterday could have been one of the worst Easters ever. Along with the Easter celebrations, we were also celebrating 2 birthdays. I made a birthday cake that fell apart and sunk in the middle. And I thought after it was frosted, it would look better, but it didn't. It looked like a 5-year-old had made it. I didn't have the same number of gifts for each of the family members to open. I didn't have any Sprite to add to my grape juice, and I forgot to buy vanilla ice cream to go with the chocolate cake I made. Only half of the grandkids could come to my annual Easter egg hunt. One family was 45 minutes late for dinner. One of my sons invited an unexpected friend at the last minute that I didn't know. The basement where the grandkids usually play in our home was in disarray because we had put all the toys up on shelves and tables in case the basement floods during the next couple of weeks. And I could talk on and on about how there were so many things that did not go as I had planned. But I can honestly say it was one of the best Easters ever. I decided to go down and visit my grandkids who couldn't make it on Sunday the week before and do an Easter egg hunt at their house. And because it was their spring break, I got to spend the whole day with them doing all kinds of fun things. The grandkids who were here on Easter got more eggs and more personal attention. We wouldn't have had enough seats at the table if the one family hadn't been late. And my son's friend was a whole lot of fun to be with and made us laugh during all the games we played. Everyone loved the meal, and the cake was so moist we didn't even need ice cream. After putting candles in the cake and lighting it, no one noticed the blemishes in the frosting. Everyone was happy with their birthday gifts, and there was hardly anything to pick up when the grandkids left, because before choosing a new toy to bring upstairs to play with, they always put the last one away. So we had so much fun together, but I didn't have the hours of cleanup afterwards because all the toys had been put up high in the basement because of the scare of flooding. Not worrying about how everyone was doing and allowing everyone to have whatever experience they were going to have took all the pressure off of me. When I have thoughts like, it's so good to just be together, the only thing that really matters is that everyone feels my love. It feels good to love everyone just the way they are. It's not my responsibility to make sure everyone is happy and has a good time. When I have all of these or any of these thoughts, it's really easy for me to feel relaxed and have a wonderful time. And I know that that is available to you too. Depending on what thoughts we choose to think, will make it either the most amazing holiday ever or have it one that we really wish that we'd never even gotten together for. So I hope that you can see how wonderful your holidays can be without the stress that sometimes we've been used to in the past. I know this is available to you. Know that you are loved, and thanks for listening. If you have a child who's struggling and would like to talk to someone, don't hesitate to reach out. To schedule a free coaching session, go to cindyallredcoaching.com.